The Chronicles of Narnia, written by one C.S. Lewis, has come to be a staple of elementary and middle school learning and education. C.S. Lewis was a known Christian and wrote many great books. My favorite may be the Screwtape Letters. I absolutely adore that book. But in the Chronicles of Narnia, particularly The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, the Pevensey children, Lucy and Edmund, team up with their cousin, Eustace Scrubb, to help Prince Caspian on a mission after they go through a painting and enter the magical land of Narnia. While stranded on an island, Eustace stumbles upon a dragon skeleton, a corpse outside of a cave. Being a child and being curious, of course, Eustace goes into the cave, and what he sees inside is the dragon's hoard, the fabled treasure that all dragons lust after, piles and piles of gold. Enamored by what he sees, he climbs atop of the gold and finds a large golden bracelet. Too big for his own wrist, he slides it up his arm. He then gets tired and sleepy and falls asleep on the pile of gold. Upon waking, he discovers his arm hurting, and he goes to look and sees that he too has now been transformed into a dragon. Now, dragons themselves have always been very interesting, especially to me. Throughout the centuries, there have been so many different types of dragons. Not just a four-legged dragon with wings, but you also have wyverns and worms. Each dragon named something different and looking different. In medieval literature, we see that dragons are used not only as a symbol of penultimate evil, but also greed. Typically, these dragons would be slain by some sort of a heroic figure. And this typically would take place inside the dragon's lair, surrounded by piles and piles of gold. C.S. Lewis's own friend, J.R.R. Tolkien, in the Hobbit series, for example, wrote about the dragon Smaug, who had a massive hoard that he stole from the dwarves. Piles and piles of gold, glittering in the dragon's eyes, glittering off of the dragon's scales. It seems dragons have a love of gold, and they collect as much as they possibly can, which was always very confusing for me. After all, it's not as if the dragon can pop off to the local tavern for a pint of ale, but is rather large and would not fit. The dragon in and of itself has no need for gold, but collects as much as it possibly can, just to have a collection of shiny things. This is why dragons have become associated with the notion of greed. And it makes sense, because again, they can't use the gold. All they do is collect and accumulate until they have, well, they'll never have enough. This is why C.S. Lewis has Eustace Scrubb turn into a dragon in this particular installment of the Chronicles of Narnia. It goes to show us that Eustace has a love of this world. He desires things of this world, the material things. And because of this fact, he was transformed into something. The ultimate symbol of greed. He becomes a dragon himself. He saw the world. He saw that which glitters. And in his heart of heart, he says, I want it all. And so he becomes something else, something different. This is exactly what Paul is warning Timothy about in our epistle reading today. On the surface, it seems as if Paul is simply telling Timothy, be different from the world. And surely this is what he is doing. This is the intent. As a teacher, Timothy is supposed to be different, set apart from other people, and live his life differently than how everyone else is. That is why he says, "But for you, man of God, shun all this. Pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness." And our section today starts with this notion. Flee from worldly things. There is great godliness, Paul says, combined with contentment. For we brought nothing into this world so that we can take nothing out of it. The old saying is what? You can't take it with you when you go. You just can't. Now this obviously is much to the chagrin of, say, the ancient Egypts, who thought you could take everything with them, and that's why they had these elaborate burials. They said, all of this stuff that I have, I'm going to need in the next life. That's why they had these ornate sarcophagi. Sarcophaguses? I'm not sure what the plural of that is. That's why they had jars and pots of honey and gold and all of the things they enjoyed in this world. They thought they could take it with them, and Paul tells Timothy, absolutely not. You can't take it with you. So what's the point? Well, it's nice to have things in this world. It's nice to have things and to be comfortable. But see, the problem is that humans don't just want to be comfortable. No, human beings like to have more and more and more. Go to a restaurant, out to eat, and after you're done with your meal, the waiter or waitress, the server, they will come to you and they will say something along the lines, and it's usually one phrase that they say. Can I tempt any of you with dessert? Now, maybe you had an appetizer. We'll say you did. So you had an appetizer, you had a salad, you had your main meal. There is not enough room for more. And yet, what does each of us do? We say, well, let me look. And you look, and you see something absolutely amazing. Drizzled in chocolate, drizzled in caramel, something sweet, cheesecake perhaps, tiramisu. I gotta stop. Wow. This time of year, something pumpkin related. And you're tempted, even though you're full, even though you had your veggies and your protein and all of this good stuff, even though you're full, you're like, that looks really good. I want more. That is what we as people do. We look at this world and we get greedy. More, more, more. That's what we want. And this is what Paul is trying to tell Timothy to look after. See, money in and of itself is not inherently evil. The problem is, as Paul points out to Timothy, that it leads you down a path. You have some, so what do you want? More, more, more. And this is what marketing does to us. All of us know what do we know about Pringles? Once you pop, you just can't stop. Look at what they've done to Oreos. You have one Oreo, and it's fine, and then what happens? Double-stuffed Oreos come out, and you're like, I need that because the cream is the best part. But no, even that wasn't good enough for us, and now they have an extra stuffed Oreo that has more stuffing in it than the double-stuffed. And that's not even good enough for us for now. Now they have all these different flavors of Oreo. They went so far as to make cookies and cream flavored Oreos. Cookies and cream is ice cream that tastes like Oreos. So what they are successfully marketing to us are Oreo flavored Oreos. And we buy it. We buy it because we want more things. That's what we do. And it's the same with money. You get a little bit of money, what do? You squirrel it away, you save it, you don't touch it. You can't use it because, God forbid, what if something happens? And it's good to have savings, don't get me wrong. The problem is you get a little bit and what do we want? We want more, and we want more, and we want more. And what happens when you want more? you're going to get more one way or another. And that's what we tell ourselves. It's okay if I do this little thing because I need to get money. It's okay if I ignore God because I need to get money. It's okay if I lie a little bit because I need to get this money. And we make up all of these excuses while we chase that almighty dollar. And Paul is telling Timothy, no, this is not what you should be doing. You should not be chasing the dollar. You should be chasing after Jesus, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. That is the only thing that will satisfy you in this world. See, the problem is too much of a good thing makes you complacent. I have to admit right now, my best friend is a Steelers fan. They're 0-3. They're 0-3. They haven't won. I get a little bit of sadistic glee out of that. But for so long, the Steelers were a real force in football. They really were. I mean, we remember what? The Steel Curtain. We remember all the greats from that franchise. And now they're 0-3. I like saying it, I'm sorry. They got complacent with winning. They got complacent with being good. And now they're all moaning and complaining because now they're going through a bit of a tough season. I'm glad to, sister, believe me. But my point is, because you get complacent, you think everything's all good. You're not going to want to do change. You're not going to want to strive for things. And so if you have all this wealth, all this accumulation of stuff, what are you going to do with it? You're either going to want more, you're going to be complacent, and you're not going to want to do anything. Each and every one of us here, we know one thing for certain: how we spend the lottery winnings. We know exactly, before the numbers are called, and when my ticket comes in, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And all of us have this plan. My dad has this plan. Like, he's going to retire. Well, he already retired, but he was going to retire. He was going to buy a big house, and he was going to build houses for his kids around this lake, and my mom was going to have this pond filled with otters because she loves otters, and all this really weird stuff. The money had all been spent before he would even think about winning. And the mainstay of it was what? He would retire. He wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't go to work the very next day. Complacency. And that's what the problem is. We become complacent, and we become greedy, and we want more. It's this really weird world in which we live in, where we at the same time become complacent with things, but also want more and more and more. See, here's the simple fact of the matter. You are blessed to be a blessing. I'm going to say that again because of how important it is. You are blessed to be a blessing. Everything that you are blessed with, you have to be a blessing to others. This is the core of what God told Abraham. When he was making covenant with Abraham, he says, I will bless you so that you may be a blessing to all nations. But what do we hear when we hear that? I will bless you, period, stop. And that's where they cut it off. And why do they cut it off? Because that message is going to sell like hotcakes, that God's just going to give you free stuff. That is the most important thing. But they always leave out the second part. You are blessed to be a blessing. That is why we have things. What good is just having an accumulation of stuff if you are not using it to make this world a better place? What good is being a dragon if you can't use all the gold? What is the point of having that? And I'm not talking about wants, because we all have things that we want. I'm talking about the fact that God supplies our needs. Our basic needs get covered. Our basic needs get covered. And what do? We want more. And we say things like, I deserve it. Yes, absolutely. Tempt me with that dessert. Yes, absolutely. Tempt me with that new iPhone. They just released the new iPhone. Thing's got 3 cameras. I don't know why a phone needs 3 cameras, but guess what? I want it because it's a bright, shiny new toy, and I'm human, and I'm like, I need that. Meanwhile, my phone works fine. But because I look around and I see, shiny new toy, 3 cameras. Why does it have 3 cameras? I don't know, but I want it. Simply because it's new, simply because it's shiny, simply because it's the best. That's what we do. The human heart is a factory of idols, and we create things and make them into idols. We look at the world and we say, I want this, I want this, I want this. Now, what could I do instead of buying a new phone? I don't know, grocery shopping, stuff for the kids, things that my wife may want or need. All of these things I could do. The problem is, we need to focus on our needs. Then we can focus on other people. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have some things that you want. It's great to get a new outfit. It's good to make yourself feel better. But Paul's warning to Timothy is, be careful because it's all a slippery slope. Because you're going to get complacent. You're going to get greedy. And you're going to expect to have everything handed to you. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We can't get too comfortable, and we should never be completely comfortable, because we look at the world and what do we see? We see terror, we see heartbreak, we see humiliation, we see people being hurt on a daily basis for this reason or that reason. And we think to ourselves the same thing over and over again. God, when will you do something? Guess what? God did do something. God made you. So use your blessings to help alleviate things. Don't just store up your blessings to sit back and say, look at all my pretty shinies, my precious. Look at all the shiny gold baubles that I have. Don't do that. You are blessed to be a blessing. And that's the sin of the rich man in Jesus' parable today. He gets comfortable. He gets so comfortable with his wealth and his accumulation, he doesn't even notice Lazarus. He just walks by him every day. Meanwhile, the poor guy's got these nasty sores that are broken and bleeding, and the dogs come over to lick him. And never once does it say that he stopped to help him. In all of his wealth, in all of his power, in all of his might, in all the shiny golden baubles that he has, not once does he look at the man who has nothing and say, I need to help him. Not once. Because he's only thinking about himself. He's only thinking about what he needs to do to get more, to have more clout, to have more power, to have more money. He wore a purple robe. Why did he wear a purple robe? Because purple was an expensive color to make. It was hard to make purple in that time. It was considered a picture of royalty. And that's why Jesus goes out of his way to explain, dressed in purple and fine linen. It was an import. It cost money to make purple clothes. So you know this guy is stacked. He's wealthy as all get out. And so the same thing that happens to poor people happens to rich people, and they both die. One goes to heaven, one goes to hell. And in the midst of this, I can't believe the reaction of this rich man. He looks across the great chasm. He looks and he sees, and what is it that he sees? He sees Abraham, and he sees Lazarus. And his immediate reaction is, Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus to do something for me. In the midst of everything, he still is so entitled. He still is so self-righteous and self-important that he has the gumption. He has the gall to, in hell, look and say, I need you to do something for me. Meanwhile, not once on earth did he have the same wherewithal to look at that poor man and say, what can I do for you? It's always about me, and what I need and what I want. And Abraham breaks it down for him. He says, look, it's not going to happen for a number of reasons. He should have said, and shame on you for suggesting that he needs to be the one to do this. But that's not even good enough. He says, okay, that's fine, I get it. But please send Lazarus, he says. Send Lazarus to warn my brothers. And he still wants Lazarus to do something for him. And he says, look, your brothers had Moses. Your brothers had the prophets and all of the writings. And if they don't know by now what they're supposed to do, they're not going to listen to a dead person. I'm not doing it. So complacent, so self-righteous in his work that he decides that he still needs other people to work for him, completely missing out the main point. The fact that every day he saw someone suffering, he saw someone in need, and he couldn't have the wherewithal to say, maybe I don't need a new pair of shoes, maybe I should help this guy out. Maybe I don't need to have the best of this one particular thing. Maybe I can end this person's suffering. Not once does he suggest that. That's the real sin here. In all of his wealth and all of his power and all of his glory and all of his money, he does not once say, I have all this, what can I do with it? Material things make us complacent. Wealth makes us complacent. It makes us not want to do anything. The love of money is going to get you into trouble. So as Paul says, flee from it. Run to the righteousness found in Jesus Christ. Interestingly enough, this kind of brings us back to where we started, in Narnia, on an island, with a little English boy who was turned into a dragon. C.S. Lewis, as I stated earlier, was a very prolific Christian writer, and the Chronicles of Narnia is nothing if not an allegory for Jesus. They could literally have called Aslan the lion allegorical Jesus lion, and it would have made complete sense still. Aslan in the Chronicle of Narnia is a Jesus figure. And there's a scene where this dragon realizes he needs help. And he comes before Aslan and asks for help. And so the mighty lion takes his giant paws and rakes the scales off the dragon and saves Eustace Scrubb. From that point on, he is transformed, not into a dragon, not even just back into a person. But he becomes an ally of Narnia, a friend of Narnia. He realizes that he can't pursue just anything that he wanted, that he has to be different. He has encountered Aslan the lion, allegorical Jesus lion. And because of this, he is changed. That is what we need. Transformation in our lives. So let's do this. Let's be transformed. Let us not be complacent. Let us not be greedy. Let us not be selfish. But let's look at this world for what it really is. And the fact of the matter is, this world needs us. This world needs us to shine the light of God in it. This world needs us to be the blessing that God has called us to be in the world. So let's do it. There's nothing holding us back. There is nothing stopping us from being the church, from being the body of Christ in this world, to shining the light that Jesus has in this world. So we're going to do it. Simple as that. And we're going to do it with God's help. Amen.